Hello and welcome to our session, A Culture of Innovation for the Disability Sector, a Tasmanian case study. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians, the land in which I am gathered on here, where we're broadcasting from and where you are watching this session from, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise that for well over 65,000 years they've innovated, they've created, but they've also loved and cared for others on these lands, and there is still so much that we can learn from. My name is Adam Mostogle. I am the founding director of Illuminate Future, as well as wearing many other hats. But I'm really excited to be sharing with you what we've been doing here in Tasmania to inspire you, to encourage you, to give you a look at what we're doing here through the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub. We're only 1 year into a 3-year project, so we're still building, we're still creating, and we're still in that establishment phase. But I really want to give you a look under the hood to consider, to reflect, to think about how you are engaging with people with disabilities, to maybe inspire you, and obviously very happy to have a chat with you after the event around what we are doing, but also maybe to help you think a little bit more broadly around those who may not come into your innovation hubs, to your events, who aren't joining in, and how can we actively support and encourage for them to belong. For this session, I'm going to run through a few things. I've got a few guests joining me as well. If you want to contribute, if you want to discuss, please use the chat throughout. I really want to make sure that we can get through everything we want to share with you. I've got some great contributions, and also just to give you the stories of what we've been doing. And that's really what I'm excited to share with you. I'm going to run through why the culture of innovation entrepreneurship is really important, what's been happening in our sector up till now, what the hub is all about, where we're up to so far, some of the things that we're seeing already that we can encourage and inspire you with, and the legacy that we believe we are going to leave to encourage you and to think differently as well. And as I said, it's just a checkpoint. We still haven't got it all sorted. We are 1 year in. But we're really excited about what we're creating and developing, and I come from a space that is very much innovation entrepreneurship. That's why this has been broadcast through Spark. This is like my living and breathing space, and I am spending more and more time in the disability space and realising the opportunities but also the barriers that are there, and the encouragement that we can offer collectively as a community, not just here in Tasmania but all across Australia, and that's what I want to empower you with. So why on earth should we even be considering innovation entrepreneurship for the disability sector? And really importantly, we're looking at both participants, which are people with disabilities, and I'm going to refer to them as participants from here on out, but also for the workforce of the sector. And the first thing is, from my perspective, is an absolute no-brainer. Everyone should have the right to start new ideas, to be creative, to be entrepreneurial. And when you start to consider it, not everybody has that opportunity, has that right. And so that's one of the things, first and foremost. It's about introducing and bringing what would otherwise be seen as normal in other spaces. It's what we do every single day, and bringing that into the disability sector. And as I said, it's actually the whole sector. We realise that our participants, they are really encouraged and supported by those who support them. And so we need to encourage those supporters, the advocates, the organisations, the staff that work with them, to actually look at how they can be innovative and entrepreneurial, to advocate on behalf of those participants and say, I think you can do that, and then support them in that. That's not to say they're fully fledged business advisors, but they're encouragers and they're supporters. Like we have a network that can help us with that right now. We need to build that network in the disability space specifically to support and to encourage. But as I said, it is not just about what I want to share with you today. I could happily spend all 45 minutes having a chat with you about what we've been doing and my passion and interest in this space. But I'm going to introduce the rest of our guests that are joining me for this conversation. We've got Danny, we've got Ness, we've got Nick, and we've got Jessica, who are going to have some input throughout to share their perspectives. And they've all been involved in various aspects of the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub, but I really want to make sure that their voices are heard. And so I'm going to get them to introduce themselves and why they think a culture of innovation entrepreneurship in the sector is really important.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a disability support worker, and I work in day support predominantly, and getting out and about community access with participants. Definitely good to have innovation in every sector of life. For participants, I would say they're just like you and I. Why would it be any different? And for you and I, and certainly for me in my job and with my colleagues, I think it's really important to have your finger on the pulse with up-to-date information and things that are new and improved, so innovative, ideas on how to work with people, even through to operating the latest wheelchairs, is something that we need to be a bit across, perhaps more than participants, but why can't we all be on the same page? It comes from the top down, I would say, and if we don't know that as staff, how can we impart that to our participants?
So I'm Dani. I'm the community manager for an innovation hub, and I've worked within the disability sector in Tasmania for the past 3 years. The disability space has had a long history of being stuck in a rut, really. We've been looking at ways that we can do things the same. There hasn't been a lot of change. With the introduction of the NDIS a few years ago, there was great promise of individuality and choice and control, and bringing innovation into the whole conversation will just improve the opportunities for those living with disability and those working in the sector. Everybody in the disability sector, from workers, the family and supports that are around it, as well as the participants, are vital to be a part of the conversation. It's incredibly important that everybody who is a part of someone's life with a disability are able to understand the benefits and the opportunities that arise for being innovative, being able to start your own business, and how that can work for someone who does live with a disability.
Hey, I'm Jessica Brown. I work at Escaley Foundation. I feel that it's important because we as humans grow through new ideas, through creativity, through opportunities, and definitely reflection, as should sectors specifically that work with supporting people and the growth of people. It's important for just businesses alone, but also the people that are accessing those businesses. We can get to a point where we know that something works. We know that it's all risk has been thought of, everything is structured and it works. So it can be really easy for disability services to stick with those routines, stick with that framework and structure that works and that supports people the way that they feel they need to be supported. But I think what is important for disability services to start learning is there really is a dignity and risk that we as humans are able to explore things and to take those little risky moves, and we grow from that, and that's where we need to grow in the sector.
So, good morning. My name is Vanessa Sinclair. I'm actually a disability support worker in the Launceston area with a private company. The reasoning I feel that it's valid for anybody with a disability is that it gives them equality. It gives them the chance to be a part of whatever they want to be a part of as a person, as an individual with their own rights. It doesn't equate to them being an individual with a disability. It equates to them just to being a person who can actually start a job, start a business, and start being a part of the community in a broader manner than what they already are. Well, definitely with the staff being supported, it gives us an avenue to talk to other people about it. We can be the mouthpiece. We can be the person that helps them with the innovation. We can say to them, this is their passion, this is where they can go to, this is where they can, access things, which will give them that first step. It doesn't have to be a big step. It just has to be that first step, because as we know, in anything that we do, the first step is always the hardest. So if we're another person who can champion anyone's first step, it's got to be a good thing.
It's really great to hear those other perspectives as well. And I'm sure for some of you, you're sitting there listening going, wait a minute, that makes sense, that's right. But you're maybe not just thinking with that disability lens. You might be thinking of other parts of our population that are frequently underestimated, and realising that they may not be fully represented in your innovation community, in your ecosystem, and thinking, how do we get them to be involved? Now, why the Tasmanian disability sector first and foremost? And for me, as I said, this is something that I'm learning, and please, those who are more experienced in the sector than me, please I might say a few things that are a little bit different, but that's because I am learning and growing in this space and being introduced and have the support of organisations like St Giles, I'll introduce in a moment, to come into this space and to be bringing my experience of innovation entrepreneurship into the sector as well. And so for me, I'm learning more and more every single day. But the Tasmanian disability sector, really interestingly, one of the stats that sits there is the weekly median income for someone who has a disability, has reported a disability, is $430 a week. Now that is compared to someone who has never reported a disability, and their average median income for a week is $769. So there's a difference of $339 a week if you have a disability. And that's a lot. That amounts to well over $17,000 a year. And that is the difference. And the single factor that splits those two groups is whether you have a disability. And Tasmania as a state, we have the highest rate of disabilities in Australia. The percentage of people who have reported disabilities is 26%. That's more than 1 in 4 Tasmanians. Now, the national average is 18%. And so when you look at that, even that, it's almost 1 in 5. That's quite a high number. But we often think about those visible disabilities. Who can we see? Oh, they've got a wheelchair or a walking frame or even a cane. Maybe I can see they've got a hearing aid or something like that. We look for that. But there is so much more in the unseen that we really need to consider and we need to think about and reflect. If you don't hear someone speak, you may not hear they've got a speech impediment. You may not see the beauty of Auslan if you aren't engaging in that space. And so there is that angle as well that we've got to really consider. And one of the scary stats that I think it's really important just to consider, people with disabilities aged between 15 and 24 are 16 times more likely to report discrimination compared to those aged over 65. And for many of us, our 15 to 24-year-old days was the time that we were finishing school, building our foundation for where we wanted to go to next. And if you are being discriminated at that stage, that is really unfortunate, and you are going to struggle to thrive. And innovation entrepreneurship is about creating the opportunity to thrive, to back yourself, to get out there. Now, that's sort of the context, and then what has been happening in Tasmania so far. And so I've had the privilege of running We Can. I've run 4 rounds of it before, 2 in the Northwest Coast in Burnie, hosted at Cradle Coast Authority in the University of Tasmania, and then 2 here in Launceston at St Giles Society. That was a collaborative effort with St Giles Society, who were very interested in bringing innovation entrepreneurship. How do we support more people to start businesses? They saw what I'd been doing in education. I run Illuminate Education Australia as well, and have taught now over 15,000 students across every state and territory in Australia how they can start their own business and bring that knowledge and experience into this space to create a supportive space for people with disabilities to start. Well over 20 people went through those programs collectively across the workshops across North and Northwest Tasmania, and that was supported by the Regional Jobs and Investment Package. So there was no actual financial investment from our participants. We gave that as a gift to them. And one of the things that I definitely got out of it, and I want to share from my personal perspective as well in this regard, is that we had an interview with them and it was fascinating. Like, we don't often ask the questions, how would you write down notes? We just give someone a pen and paper, and for some people with disabilities, that's just not what they do. Sometimes we had to be scribe for them. Sometimes we had to look at not just having pen and paper, but computers and getting all the digital documents ready, because that's what they were comfortable doing, and finding other ways to support. Sometimes they'd bring their support worker along or a family member to help them with that they really trusted and wanted to bring into that space. Like, that isn't a barrier, but it's not a question that we ask. And supporting them and understanding, okay, how do we support and create the right environment for you to feel welcome? Oh, look, I really struggle to read a screen. That's okay, we can bring in a really nice large screen. Let's go and get a nice big TV and you can have a look at that and support yourself with that. But these aren't questions we often ask, and that was some of the things that for me, but then the outcomes of that, watching people's confidence build, the ideas that we started, and just the pure creativity of people with disabilities all across our northern Tasmania, and just, I was blown away by the people who created, the artists, the creatives, the people who loved doing things, and they just went, I want to do this more. I had a guy who was visually impaired, but loves going to events and wanted to run a podcast to tell people where events were, because every events guide is online. And so unless you've got the voice to text and it reads it out, who tells you where you're going to get events? You don't listen to the radio for that anymore. You go to a website. If you can't read the website, what do? Well, you create a podcast where you tell that story instead. People on the autism spectrum who had just amazing, incredible knowledge about certain areas. It was just so empowering to see that. But then as we sort of think further about this, when we were delivering this, one of the biggest challenges was that we went to stakeholders, we went to people in the disability sector and said, we want to do this. And this is a couple of years ago, just as NDIS is rolling out. And we sort of realised that we were probably a little bit ahead of the curve and not everyone was ready for this. Because we'd go to stakeholders and the support agencies and they were scared by the idea of starting a business. The support workers themselves, that's not what they wanted to do. So why would they advocate for that to their participants? And we started to realise, and this is where we identified, the culture of innovation entrepreneurship needed to be built. We needed to establish that. We need to create that across the entire sector. If we're going to have people advocate for people with disabilities to start businesses, they need to be solid advocates and they need to trust the service providers that are around, but also advocate strongly that this is an opportunity. And one of the great comments that came out of the final round on the Northwest Coast, I had an occupational therapist from St Giles with me, and they made the comment, this is the true form of occupational therapy. Instead of modifying a job and a work site to fit someone with a disability, they create their own job. They'll make it fit their strengths, their unique skills, their time frames, how they want to work. And realistically, as a customer base, we are in awe of what they can create and do. And that was a really interesting sort of perspective. And then to share that with others. We ran pitch events that were out in the community. We had in the Northwest Coast, we took over a large meeting space, which just happened to be the space where the economic development managers for the region were also meeting that day. And we said, hey, we'll shout your lunch, but we want you to have a listen to some pitches. And they were just blown away. And again, it was, how did we miss people with disabilities as economic development opportunities? Not just the disability sector as a workforce and the caring economy, but these people have skills. They've got gifts, they've got talents, they've got amazing abilities, and we want to help them get started. And the reason that then the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub started to come about was that COVID concerned all of us. So St Giles Society and myself, we'd kept talking about this and we were really worried. We were worried right in the early days that discretionary spends were being cut down. Everyone was slashing budgets like February, March 2020, if you can remember that far back. And we were worried that the discretionary spends were going to go, which often could be the modifications to support someone with a disability. If you've got to start culling down your staff list, you're going to have the ones that you maybe can get the most out of. Now, that's obviously not the decision that every leader would make, but we were concerned about that. But there's also an interesting stat when we were getting ready for We Can, was that 3 times, your people with disabilities, our participants, are 3 times more likely to be unemployed. And when the modelling sort of showed that Australia could reach 15% unemployment at that time, which was on the forecast, we were worried because 3 times 15% is almost half of people with disabilities unemployed. And that's a really, really scary number when you start to think about it. And so we wanted to get in and support, but also understand that COVID also probably brought out a caring and compassionate side of our community that we always knew was there, but I think it brought out the best and probably sometimes the worst of us. But we wanted to go, if that's what we've been doing, how do we keep doing that? How do we keep building off that? New opportunities, new shifts as we rebuild out of COVID, especially here in Tasmania. How do we put people with disabilities at the forefront? That is what the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub is all about. So let me explain who's behind it and who's involved. It is a collaboration between St Giles Society and Illuminate Future, but we've also been supported generously by the Tas Community Fund. And so let me introduce them first, because without them, there's no way that we would have got up all the programs and been able to offer them at no cost to the community. So the Tas Community Fund, so when the Trust Bank was sold around 21 years ago, the funds were kept aside and there's a board that oversees it and distributes that back to the community through community grants. Since the year 2000, over $110 million has been invested back into the Tasmanian community through over 3,000 worthy projects led and run by community organisations that add value to our entire community. So the Tas Community Fund, if you're in the Tasmanian space, like everyone knows who that is and what they've been doing, but nationally, that obviously creates a lot of opportunity for things like this to be seeded and to be started. And we were supported through a COVID recovery round because of what I've just been sharing about, but also the opportunity to support the community and the entire sector in a way that is seed funded and to build from there. Now, St Giles Society was started in 1937. After the polio pandemic, I feel like now we have to classify which pandemic, because we all know the pandemic. named after the patron saint of the disabled, but has diversified greatly from a base in northern Tasmania to now be a statewide organisation to really be leading in early childhood support, autism services, allied health services, and much, much more. I'm always blown away when I get to meet the team and find out what's actually happening out there. And I think that breadth of support has created new opportunities to think differently as well. And that's why I think that the conversations that were started out of that has come from there, and their support has been absolutely fundamental to getting this program across the line. And then Illuminate Future is the third leg of this Tasmanian Disability Hub implementation crew, and Illuminate builds off the legacy of what I've done in school. So Illuminate Education Australia has taught over 15,000 students, as I said, across primary and high school how to start their own business. And Illuminate Future has taken that to an adult audience, especially around young adults being more entrepreneurial and creative and looking at the skills they need to thrive. And a lot of that work has been done in New South Wales and Victoria. So it's been really great to sort of bed down in a project here in Tasmania to bring that skill set, to bring that understanding and my experience and my background in some of the things that I have done to support people with disabilities to start to create, but also to support the entire sector to be innovative and entrepreneurial. I feel like I'm somewhat like an entrepreneur in residence for the whole disability sector, and it's an awesome opportunity to be able to be that. And so they're the organisations that are part of the hub. Now, I talk about the hub a lot. What on earth actually is involved? And so there's a number of pillars here. So we've got the launch program, which supports people that work in the sector to start businesses. Going back to what I talked about before, we need to support the support workers and the advocates and the spheres of influence around our people with disabilities to be more innovative, to be more entrepreneurial, and for them to lead change in their own context, to then be able to support and encourage people with disabilities to go on that same journey. And so it's very much it's a 5-day, it's a leadership, it's a personal development, it's almost an entrepreneurship unit in itself, but it's also bringing together a network of people that can advocate for innovation, entrepreneurship, but also mentor our participants. And so the programs are made up of people across different organisations who not often get that chance to meet and to collaborate and actively go, we care about our participants and how do we help them? And that's really exciting to see what they are coming together and creating together, but also individually, and the legacy of some of those things coming through. And so Launch has been an absolute honour and privilege to run and to see the legacy of that so far already in this first year. We Can, I talked about it before, so We Can is what I call a self-employment accelerator. We're looking to build the skills and the aspirations of our participants to start their own business. What are their skills? What are their strengths? And building off from that, what are they really awesome at that they can build an idea on? And then we get to introduce them through the idea generation process, through marketing, through finance, through pitching, and so much more. But really build their confidence, their skills, their creativity, their ability to give things a go and create a safe place that they can do that and wrestle with these concepts. Some of these things are hard. Most of us don't like doing finances in our businesses as it is. And for some people, it's a real scary thing, but we create a safe place that they can play with those things in their own ideas, around their own passions, and then go, okay, where can we take that? And so We Can has been fantastic. It's great to be continuing to roll it out, and we've obviously got a legacy there already. The third part of the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub is our anchor projects. And so we work with 3 projects a year in a longer term basis. Obviously Launch and We Can are short intensive programs, but then the anchor projects allows us to provide sustained support, whether it's through mentoring, through leadership, through business advice, and there's a little bit of seed funding there as well to get things going. This year, in the first round, there's been the three anchor projects have been to help start a sourdough bakery that people with disabilities work in and support that. And I'm going to show you a video a little bit later of what they've been doing to help a disability-focused theatre company diversify, 1, to become statewide, but 2, to actually look at how they can use that skill set around building the dramatic skills to actually become communication skills and actually help people be out there and hopefully create some job opportunities from that. And then the third one is starting a mealworm farm, which I'm fully not around yet, but those who know mealworms probably do. And obviously there's an opportunity to create jobs for people with disabilities there as well. The fourth part is our employer workshops. Every single conversation, even in the lead up to this, we get employers coming and go, how do I employ someone with disabilities? They're scared, they're worried. Like, we're talking about introducing innovation entrepreneurship to participants who are scared and worried. Employers are scared of the unknown as well. And so we want to support them and encourage them to be able to ask the right questions to support people with disabilities, to know where they can go and get help and employ more people. See, the thing is out of we can, we know that not every participant will start a business. That's not our aim. We want to build their confidence and their strength and help them get on that pathway. But if they choose not to, we want to help them create the job opportunities that they need as well. And so with that, what have we actually been doing, and what are some of the outcomes and the tangible things that we've been doing around changing the culture? Well, why don't I start in the same order, and let me run through launch. And instead of me sharing about what we've done with launch, we've run 2 rounds of it, both here in Launceston as sort of second half of this year, because we spent the first half of the year establishing the hub, getting the projects down pat, building the processes and the systems out, because we do want to establish this for long-term success. So, and then the next part of that is that launch is then actually to help those people working in the sector, to support change, to support leadership, and bring that skill set so they can advocate for our participants to go down this pathway. But they've also got a lot out of launch as well. And so I'm going to throw over to Jess, to Ness, and to Nick to share their perspectives.
Look, I got so much from the program, not just from attending the program, but from the reflection of after attending the program. So going through the booklets, really kind of teaching myself to stop, to breathe, to analyse. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but I was thinking about this and how I would explain it to people. And it's kind of along that swimming pool analogy to an extent. I'm someone that in personal life, and I like to jump in. So we're going to use a swimming pool analogy, but I like to jump in. And yes, it can be fun, but it's also chaotic. And if we take that into a business kind of world, that's a chaotic approach. What I've gotten from this program and what I continue to try and bring into my work is the idea that you learn so much from allowing yourself to step slowly in the pool. So what I learned from this program is that you need to sit back, you need to analyse, you pull every part and you take step by step. So stepping into the pool, so to speak, we take one step, we stop, we reflect, we see how that's impacted the water, how that's impacted your connections, and then we take another and then we analyse and we get into that pool, but it's way less chaotic. We haven't got water going everywhere. We've gotten that sustainable end to an extent. I guess in previous times, I have so many ideas through my head and I'll go, all right, jump into this. And I'll go from A to Z and wing it along the way. And that works sometimes, but it's not going to work all the time. So innovation is scary. New ideas are scary, but if you plan it enough and you've got enough plan Bs that you can run with, it takes away that fear and you come out with, you've learnt from it. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to come across issues. That's fine. But how have you learnt from that for the next idea? So
for me, launch was a bit of an eye-opener. So I think it's a great program for anybody to go through, whether you're actually wanting to start your own business or whether you're wanting to be a champion for someone else to start their own business. I think it gives you a bit of a inside look at the complexities that has to happen before you even get moving. You have an idea, you've got to put it all on paper, you've got to see the value in it. And just going through the launch process, that definitely does that. It gives you the whole A to Z part of the story and just gives you those tips and ideas and stumbling blocks that you may not think about yourself. They're all built into the program to give you a better idea, overall.
For me personally, getting involved with the launch program was really fortuitous. That's something that just came up as it's coming up, and it was good to give myself some challenges where I'm at in my workplace. And what I've been thinking about lately, it definitely helped to join some dots and get some clarity in my mind about perhaps where I want to head going forward. Not next week, but maybe in the next few years, and certainly see opportunities where that can happen. perhaps sooner rather than later as well, like starting small and making differences at a smaller scale. So yeah, I was thinking it was like a leadership program, and I don't consider myself a leader, just a doer. But yeah, there's definitely elements of leadership in it, but it's so much more, I'd say, about everyday things and joining the dots to make things happen, work more smoothly than in the first place. Yeah. And therefore, something that I think would be worthy for everyone in the sector to have a bit more knowledge around and a bit of a better grasp at how they can help even at their level.
It was absolutely fantastic to catch up with all of the crew that were part of launch, and I must say I just love having those conversations to see how they've gone and what they've created. We've seen new community projects implemented already, new events run in Northern Tasmania that helps bring the community into spaces where our people with disabilities, our participants, are living and spending time and creating new connections and new business lines and new ways to support those in our community have also been developed and supported and facilitated. It's been really, really exciting. We've run one round of it, and I guess I want to bring back our panel members because I really want them to help actually paint the picture of why this is so important and why the participant-led workshop, the participant-focused workshops are really, really important, what barriers that we are overcoming to support them actually starting businesses.
I believe it's important that we focus on providing the service specifically to the disability sector to overcome some of the barriers of I can't, it's not for me, this is for other people, when it absolutely isn't. It is something that should be available to everybody, regardless of their disability status, regardless of age, any other factor that you can think of. Being able to be innovative is vital to being involved in our community and to being able to have some of those independences that maybe the mainstream employment sector doesn't offer at this stage. What Launch and we can do is highlight just how important this is for the disability sector and invites those who are involved in the sector to become a part of what everybody else is gaining access to as well.
So if we're not talking about it, how's anyone going to know? They're not. And yeah, participants have every right to know equal opportunity. Some of the barriers, I would say, would be that they don't get as many opportunities to network like you and I do. In the very first instance, just meeting and greeting people that may potentially have jobs on offer or training to provide to forward into jobs. So that would be a first barrier, that there's not as much knowledge from an employer's perspective around the capacity of people with disability. Perhaps there's stigmas attached, or just the unknown is enough to turn people off, when in actual fact they just need to be provided with a little more time and space, or the right environment to meet potential employers. Perhaps even within something they're already doing. So that's one barrier. There'd be other physical barriers, perhaps like buildings not up to code and access.
Some of the barriers that I see are not seen. That's the first thing I really need to say, because not everybody who has a disability is a visual disability that someone else can see. People who are mobilised, challenged, I can say, who are in a wheelchair, who wear a brace, who have to have a walker, even people with things like a walking stick. For the community, we will look at them and automatically assume that they have some form of a disability. In one thing that's sort of a bright spark for everybody to understand, The other side of the coin is not everybody has a visibility disability. So when we're looking at people who may have a speech impediment, you don't know until they open their mouth and try and say something. For people who are perhaps have mental health issues, have high anxiety levels, have probably comfort issues with being around other people, they're the sorts of things that people don't realise impact on other people's lives as being a disability. When people are talking about what they think is a minority in the community of people with disabilities, there's a whole new conversation around what is and isn't a disability and the challenges that the people have that have to live with those disabilities on a daily basis. So my mindset is more around people having challenges, not people having disabilities, because not everybody has a disability as such that is recognised straight away. For those people, we're looking at opportunities for them to be equal to anybody else. The next door neighbour gets in the car and drives away to a 9-to-5 job because they can drive, whereas someone who has a mobility issue may have a maxi taxi turn up in their driveway to support them to get to work 9 to 5. These are things that people don't sort of see too much in the community because it's not a norm. We don't look at it as a norm.
That starting point is always so hard for anyone, in particularly people with disabilities that may not have those connections in businesses, those networks to be able to explore their ideas further in higher things. So the importance of these programs in particular is to say, okay, this is where we start. This is where we start and this is how we build, and we're all in it together and we can all build it together and we can support each other. At times, I guess people with disabilities can be isolated and really need that, everyone does, but really need that backup support of, yeah, we can do this and we can get there and I'm here to help you get there. And I think when I first started working in the disability sector in particular, it was just so focused on risk and how do we how do we make sure that we're meeting all the needs around our risks. And that's okay, that's fine. I'm not at all saying that's a bad thing. We definitely need to consider how we approach risks. But I mean, at the start, it was, I think I came across like, we can't go to the beach because it is open water, and how are we going to help someone if they're out there and they, we can't get them back in, and what is the impact of that? Yeah, okay, fair enough. But you're also then just saying that people with disabilities can't go to the beach. And that's not life, and that's not how it works. And we need to balance disability sector with life and the opportunity and the right really to be able to explore that. We all have that right, every single person. So yes, okay, you're considering risk, but you need to make your business work around how do we empower people. It needs to change, and it needs to be you work around the person doesn't work around you.
And so with all of that said, we've run, as I said, one round of We Can so far. It's only been early days since we've finished. I've had a chance to catch up with one person since they've wrapped up, and they've already got customers. Now, they may have only handed out 3 flyers, but they've already got 1 customer from it. That's a pretty good hit rate in my perspective. And that's a really great start for them, and obviously supporting them on that journey. And I think that's the thing, it's the self-belief, it's the confidence. And I think back to the previous rounds of We Can, even the way people dressed changed through the program, their approach, their language, their vocabulary, and the way they thought about things as well, as Jess referred to in the way that she thought differently out of launch. That is also helping in We Can, and that's been really awesome to run. So now in terms of the anchor projects, again, I'm going to kick over to some videos, but I'm going to show you some stuff from Sourdough Bakery. Again, they've been leading this, they've been creating some great outcomes out of this, and I want to show what they've been doing so that you can see that from them.
My name is LT. I am the communications manager for Ferment Tasmania. The program, Able Kitchen, consisted of a workshop-style sourdough baking class. So working with Josh Crisp from Sandy Sourdough, we invited 4 participants who experience or identify as having an intellectual disability. We invited them into the commercial bakery space to see how they would go learning this new skill and if there was potential for future employment. The feedback from the participants during the program was overwhelmingly positive. I don't think I expected to see that much growth during the sessions, so we broke the program down into 4 sessions. Each session was identical. So between the first day and the last day, we really saw a lot of growth with the participants' engagement and also their understanding of the content and just in general their confidence level. It was really amazing to see how confident participants were from day one, walking into a bakery space, which is a completely new environment for most of them, and at the end being really comfortable knowing exactly where the hand washing sink was, being able to identify sourdough starter, using the recipe, and baking bread and getting into the oven and really getting their hands dirty. So I think the feedback was overwhelmingly positive.
My name's Josh Crisp. I own Sandy Sourdough. I was contacted by Ferment Tasmania to hold the workshops at my bakery. The program consisted of baking sourdough bread and bagels. We had 4 people come on site and they learned different skills, mixing and baking bread. Yeah, the outcomes were really good. We could see definite growth in their confidence from when they started, just moving around the kitchen. It was a sort of foreign space for most of them. I think there's room to grow it, and for those who want to get a bit more into the science side of the fermentation and what's actually going on when we mix and bake bread and things like that, I think it was really cool.
I'm so encouraged by the support that we're offering. I think the Anchor projects strategically are really important. Obviously, Launch and We Can is around that culture of innovation within the organisations and within our participants. But Anchor projects allows us to, I guess, support some of those champion organisations that we want to get out there, and also those projects that just need that little bit more to get off the ground. There's always those ideas, and I love that we've got that with the Anchor projects and the sourdough bakery. I haven't actually been at the office when they've dropped the sourdough in, but I've heard so many people that the food is great, and so when it is up and running, it's definitely worth dropping into. And I think that's the stuff that I'm really excited about seeing that we can offer that support for. The final part, the employer workshops, so they're just about to kick off. Obviously, there's a lot that we're starting to roll out and scale across Tasmania. Yes, it's only a small island, but there's a lot that we can do. And so those employer workshops are about to kick off. And Nick raised before the fear of the unknown, and we want to support our employers in that. And so all of those things, as you can see, for me, one of the things that we're really focused on and a real passion of mine is that culture of innovation, entrepreneurship. We're not just doing one thing. We found the first time we ran We Can that it wasn't enough on its own. Running a workshop to capture people with disabilities and help them on their journey, great. Like that's a great thing to do. That was supportive, that was empowering, that was encouraging, it was fantastic. But we needed to do more. We needed to support the sector to think more innovative and entrepreneurially as well. And so they thought that starting a business was a legitimate thing, and they removed that fear of the unknown. And so that's really important. The Anchor projects allows us to go, hey, look at these things. Don't you want to be part of these? Have you got something you want to lead? We've helped these. You can be in that same category. And then the employer workshops, really importantly, as I've already shared, understanding that not everyone will start a business, but if someone starts to go, oh, I really love doing this, but I'm really freaked out about doing it on my own, here's a great employer that gets it. Go and work with them, and the employer is ready and raring to go. Some of the other things that we're starting to see, and I want to share these as a bit of a reflection point. As I said, we're only 1 year in, but on the flip side of it as well, maybe there's some things that you can consider how you implement in your own local community, whether it is for people with disabilities or whether it's for someone else or another group that may be underestimated in our community. That it's actually weird to start a business. That we all that are in the Spark community, this is what we live and breathe every day. I get this. I've helped over 450 people start businesses through one-on-one mentoring in the last 18 months. I'm okay with that. That is what I do every single day. But not everybody does. And so for people with disabilities, unless they've seen someone that can start a business or those opportunities, they won't see that. You can't be what you can't see. And that's really important that we support and encourage in that space, so that people can start a business. And they just have to put it on their radar. They don't have to start, but it's on their radar. And that leads to a point that Jess raised around the dignity of risk. And it's been a really fascinating conversation to be part of and to learn from my perspective, because again, innovation entrepreneurship, there's an element of risk involved. If I want to, as much as my family might not like me to, I can go and remortgage my house, throw it all in a business and see what happens. I'm allowed to do that. That is my choice. It's probably not the smartest choice I can make, but it's my choice. For our people with disabilities, that may not be the case. We've got to build that opportunity of being able to provide the dignity of risk. Jess raised about it, that opportunity of not going to the beach because of all the risks and going, well, it's actually not there. And actually, no, I want to have a go. Like I want to try it. And we've got to offer that opportunity that someone with a disability, with the support workers around them and the support systems that are there and their advocates and the wider community, they can start, they can try. And there's some great services out there that can support as well. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, and offering that dignity of risk in a safe, supportive environment that's modified and created in that space, but allowing for that to happen and running through some models. The next part then is actually the support services that already exist. I would argue regularly that Northern Tasmania and Tasmania generally, we've got a great network of business support at local, state and federal government. So if you want to start an idea, if you want to build it, you want to create it, there's lots of support, lots of people you can call up. But people with disabilities don't feel like they belong or they can. And that's a really fundamental thing. And there's something that we've actually got to own up to and work through. I've had the privilege of talking about what we're doing through the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub at a number of expos, a number of events. And when I get to talk to people and they're like, oh, can we access the other things that you do? Like, we've got a disability, does that allow us to get into that? It's like, yeah, anyone can access that. But there's that thought process that has to be specially for people with disabilities. And so one, there's a check in my thinking about how do we actually do that differently. But the other side of it is, what have we done that have made the impression that you are not welcome? And we've got to change that as a whole sector. We've got to be encouraging. We've got to be opening. We've got to help people belong. If they want to create something really interesting, then they belong in these spaces. And we've got to create that open door. And it shouldn't be, I've got to go to a disability only support for that. No, everybody can be part of that. I'm really excited the legacy of those involved, of what they're going to create and what they're going to develop. As I said, we've already seen events. We've already got community initiatives that have already started. So I'm really excited about where that goes to from here. And that network is really, really important. We're going to have a great group of people. We're going to have around 100 people across the state that work in the disability sector, and then about 120 people who are participants with disabilities in our programs, and then the anchor projects, and then the employer workshops as well. We're going to build this great connected network across organisations, breaking down silos that all care about this. And that to me is going to lead to that culture change. And I'm already seeing it. It's absolutely fantastic, but we are only 1 year in. We've still got 2 more years to go, and we're rolling this out further across the state. Even though it is a small state, we are rolling it out further. And I believe that culture change is happening. But that is from my perspective. So I might get Danny, Ness, Jess, and Nick to come back and share some of their legacy thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think we have something really interesting happening in Tasmania because of the scale of the place. It's not so spread out, and the centres are relatively sort of controlled and localised. So you can have quite an impact in quite a short time. Sheer network of people supporting people around the state. So not just in the local areas. As I said, it's a great starting point, and we can have a faster impact in a smaller area. But I think that is an excellent starting ground and we'll have time to spread further, certainly in Tasmania, and really initiate programs that can make people believe it's feasible in a bigger place as well.
I think the Disability Innovator Hub is necessary, and I think that every single business needs to support their staff, along with management, everyone to take part. One of the side things that I really benefited from, and I believe is part of the legacy of the hub, is that disability services should be working together. We can achieve huge things if we work together. being in that group and being part of those conversations. I mean, I had my initial plan and everyone in that group helped build that together. We don't have many opportunities like that to connect. Obviously, we have our expos, we have everything like that. But when we break it down all the way back to the start of the business, everyone is trying to develop their business. So at times it can become competitive, and it's not meaning to be. It's just how it is. Everyone gets a bit competitive, a bit secretive with their ideas, trying to hold it in, trying to be the first person to explore it or do it so that they can have people come to their business. But there is so much strength and so much opportunity to come from everyone joining together and trying to build it together. And we can change the whole sector if disability services work together to do it. It's not going to go anywhere if we're all by ourselves. And that's something that I've really gained from being part of the program. I think initially I was a bit like, oh, I want to do this idea, but I don't know if I have the confidence to do it before maybe someone else does it. And it's all of that was left at the door. It's not about that at all, and everyone was just so supportive. So I gained so much knowledge-wise from you and from the program, but I also gained, I guess, from reflection and being part of that group, so much more than that. And I really believe that everyone should be attending and everyone should be part of that so that we can build those networks and those support.
The legacy for Launch and We Can is to build Tasmania to being the kind of place where people with disability want to be, where we are embracing them to be a part of our society, that there isn't a people living with disability question or not. It's just an innovative island where all sorts of opportunities are available for anyone.
Well, I basically think that this program, Launch and We Can, should be open to anybody, not just people with disabilities. We're looking at it being an innovative program at the moment to get people who have more of a challenge into the workforce, into, becoming an entrepreneur, as you're saying. However, we're also then missing the people who don't necessarily have a disability, but are challenged in other ways, be it time, finances, maybe they're children or of children who are carers. There's so many different avenues that this can definitely be, broadcast to a lot more people. I mean, we're starting with a group of people who are more challenged at this stage, but then I think the possibilities can be endless to move it across the board to any employment provider, because they're missing the gap. They're just looking for a job that's already out there. Why can't they be looking for a job that could be made? We need to be innovative in saying that you make your own job. We need to remove the middleman, which is the job seeker, all those agencies, and put in people who have the innovation to support people to build on the skills they already have and around a passion that they want to put, to follow. And
I think it's really important for us to think about what Vanessa has said there at the end. That what we're offering in the disability space, and that's the reason why I wanted to present this to you today through Spark Festival, is that we're talking about the disability sector, but this should be available to everybody. And for some reason, we have to offer that specialised opportunity because there's some challenges or some barriers that have been put up before. But on the flip side of it, everyone is entitled to be part of these programs. Everyone's entitled to join Spark. Everyone's entitled to be part of an event. But for some people, they don't feel like they are, and we've got to help them belong. And that's something for me, I think I'm really focused on leaving as a legacy of the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub, that everybody, no matter whether you're able-bodied or not, as Danny talked about, that innovative island, that's what I believe we already are, but others may not feel like they belong in that space, and that's what I think is a legacy that I want to see left out of this. So really, thank you so much for joining us for this session. I think it's really important to acknowledge all of the supporters of the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub. Obviously, St Giles Society has been a massive partner. Everything has been a sounding board with them from my perspective and Illuminate Future. And I know they've put a fair bit of time and money into the project as well themselves because they believe in the impact this is. So really want to say thank you to the whole team at St Giles Society, and also to Danielle specifically for her input into this session, even though she didn't want to be on camera. Definitely helped with some of the discussions we had, but Nick and Andrew and the whole team there have been amazing. Obviously the Tas community funds for supporting the initiative, and I really recommend anyone that can have a look at some of the cool things that they do. They do incredible things in our state. Copy it in every other state, like it's a great model. But I do want to thank the whole team, Sally and the board and Lola and the team. They support really great projects, and there's no way this would have happened without them. And just everybody for joining this session and being part of it, and all the supporters, and Vanessa, Nick, Jess and Danny all having their input as well. It's been an absolute privilege to share this with you, and I hope it asks some questions of you that you can consider. You can find out more about the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub online. I've got the details there on the screen, so you can find out more, jump on the website, see when the programs are coming up, but also ask us questions and find out more. We really love what we're doing and creating here, and as I said, it is a learning. We're only 1 year into 3 years. But we're also keen to engage and support and share out, because we know that this is not just a Tasmanian challenge. This is a challenge across Australia about people who may be underestimated in our innovation ecosystems. We don't want to see that. We want to provide the support that they feel welcome, they feel encouraged. And that is what we believe will be the legacy of a culture of innovation in the disability sector. Thank you.